Greetings and welcome to this informative video on altars. So today we're going to talk about altars, what they are, why people use them, different types of altars, the elements and things often included on them, different cultural uses, as well as actual do's and don'ts and some of the fake internet rules that we have heard about. So let's get into it. So what exactly is an altar? At its core, an altar is simply an intentional spiritual space. That's it. It's a space where somebody focuses energy, prayer, meditation, remembrance, manifestation, ritual work, ancestor connection, tarot, or other spiritual practices. An altar is not exclusive to witchcraft, which is something really important to understand. Humans have created altar spaces and sacred spaces throughout history across many religions, spiritual practices, and cultures. An altar can be incredibly simple, deeply symbolic, temporary, permanent, religious, spiritual, or deeply personal. Some people literally have a candle and a photo on a shelf, while other people have an entire room dedicated to a spiritual practice. And both of these altars and practices are completely valid. One thing I would really like to emphasize is that altars exist all over the world in many different traditions. In Christianity and Catholicism, people may have prayer altars with candles, saints, crosses, rosaries, or photos of loved ones. In Buddhism and Hinduism, altars are often used for devotion, prayer, meditation, offerings, incense, and spiritual connection. Many indigenous cultures and traditions use sacred spaces and offerings connected to ancestors, nature, spirit, or ceremony. In the Mexican Dia de los Muertos traditions, forgive my Caucasian pronunciation of that, altars are created to honor loved ones who have passed away using candles, marigolds, food, photos, and other meaningful items. You also see altars in folk traditions, pagan traditions, and spiritualist traditions, African spiritual traditions, and ancestor veneration practices around the world. So altars are not some trendy internet thing. They've existed spiritually and culturally for a very long time. So why do people create altars? People create altars for many different reasons. Some people use them for prayer, grief, healing, meditation, manifestation, ancestor connection, protection, tarot or oracle or another form of divination readings, honoring nature, honoring spirit, seasonal rituals, or even just self-reflection. Sometimes it's a really great way if you need to just pause and come back to yourself to set a small intentional space. Honestly, sometimes it becomes a very grounding place emotionally and spiritually, and a place that, again, you just kind of reconnect with yourself. So usually people create these altars for one of these intentions, or maybe just because they need something for themselves, or if maybe you're looking for some sort of practice to kind of come back to yourself, a small altar that gives you an intentional space to go to is a great way to start. So there are many different types of altars. And honestly, people often blend them together. Some of the most common are ancestor altars, protection altars, manifestation altars, abundance altars, and then some sort of divination altars. Then we kind of find a lot of healing altars, and then our seasonal altars, maybe ones that go along with, say, like the pagan holidays, or even deity altars when somebody is wanting to bring that deity's energy into their life. Your altar can also evolve over time depending on what season of life you're in. And some of us just have an altar that we keep all of the time that we rotate things in and out on because it's our intentional space that we've set. Ancestor altars are usually created to honor loved ones who have passed away. People often place photos, candles, flowers, letters, jewelry, favorite foods, or meaningful objects on them. And of course, objects that belong to them. These altars are often centered around remembrance, love, connection, and honoring family lineage or ancestral connection. Sometimes these can help with the grieving process by giving us an actual space to feel like we can go to connect with our loved one who has passed. Protection altars are focused on grounding, energetic boundaries, cleansing, and protection. People may use black candles, salt, protective herbs, obsidian, evil eye symbols, protective prayers, sigils, or smoke cleansing tools. These altars are often used to create a sense of spiritual safety and grounding. Sometimes people create these altars for a specific need if they are feeling like they need it at that time. And some people continuously have an altar like this, so they feel protected energetically, whether it is just who they are as a person, they feel like they need it, or maybe because of the type of work that they do. Manifestation and abundance altars are usually centered around goals, opportunities, money, confidence, growth, love, relationships, or success. People may place coins, cash, written intentions, green candles, cinnamon, bay leaves, vision boards, or symbols of future goals. This is where some of those funny internet alternate rules come in. So people saying things like, if you put money on an altar, you can never take it off. I remember hearing that and being like, oh, okay, so this $5 just lives here now, apparently, forever until the end of time. Some people genuinely believe that because symbolically they feel like removing the money represents removing abundance, but other people rotate offerings consistently. Personally, I like to rotate my offerings, or I like to put specific money on my altar. For example, I found a deceased family member's old wallet and it had 3 $1 bills in it. That was put on my altar for a while. Somebody gifted me a $2 bill. That was gifted on my altar for a while. At one point, I had a $20 bill and I decided to switch it out with a $50 bill. So, of course, I just took it off. When you're doing this, it's all about intention and just making sure that you're cleansing and resetting the intention back into the space. Tarot or other forms of divination altars are spaces specifically used for spiritual readings and intuitive work. People may include their tarot cards, oracle decks, pendulums, crystals, candles, cloths, journals, or any spiritual communication tools. Some people also create these spaces specifically to help them focus intuitively before readings. You can even set this space up, maybe in your office or on the table where you choose to do these readings. So whenever you're sitting down, you're connecting with the energy of your altar, and it's just automatically putting you in the space to connect to spirit and do that work. Or even having a small altar like this, maybe somewhere in your bedroom, that every day when you wake up and see it, it reminds you to pause and connect to spirit and whatever that means to you. So I've already mentioned a lot of the different things that people keep on their altars. Some of the most common altar items include candles, crystals, herbs, incense, flowers, photos, bowls of water, feathers, shells, bells, coins, statues, jewelry, written intentions, and prayer items. If you have a loved one's altar, maybe you put a little shot of their favorite drink or something that reminds you of them. Usually these objects represent something symbolically, and your altar becomes almost like spiritual language through objects. A lot of people also work with the 4 elements on their altars. The elements are often used symbolically for balance, intention, grounding, and energy. Different traditions associate them differently, but generally the 4 elements are fire, water, earth, and air. And people often place physical representation of those elements on their altars. Fire is often associated with transformation, passion, action, confidence, willpower, and energy. It's associated with the Wands card in tarot, as well as the zodiac signs of Leo, Aries, and Sagittarius. Candles are one of the most common representation of fire on an altar, and honestly, candles are probably one of the most universally used spiritual tools across many cultures. Water is usually connected to emotions, intuition, healing, flow, dreams, and psychic connection. In tarot, we use the cups to represent water, and this is also the zodiac signs Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. Many people use bowls of water, moon water, shells, cups, or ocean items. Water tends to bring a softer emotional energy to altar work. Earth is associated with grounding, stability, abundance, nature, and physical reality. In tarot, this is the Pentacles, and in the zodiac, this is Virgo, Taurus, and Capricorn energy. People often represent Earth with crystals, herbs, plants, dirt, wood, salt, or stones. Earth energy tends to feel very stabilizing and rooted. Air is often connected to communication, thought, breath, spirit, wisdom, and mental clarity. Swords represent air in tarot, and the zodiac signs associated are Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra. People may use incense, smoke, feathers, bells, or wind-related symbols. Air energy tends to feel lighter, mental, and spiritual. Okay, now let's talk about some actual altar do's. Do obviously practice safety, including fire safety, not leaving candles unattended. Keep your altar intentional. Research any traditions respectfully. Cleanse or refresh your space if that feels good to you. Use items that genuinely mean something to you. You know, if you're on a walk and you're thinking about a loved one and you see a feather and you want to pick that feather up and put on your altar because it feels good and it reminds you of them, then that is a do. You should allow your altar to just evolve naturally. Honestly, intention matters far more than any aesthetic. The biggest do is really just do what feels good and right and intentional to you. Okay, so some actual altar don'ts. Well, like I said, don't leave candles unattended. Don't steal from closed spiritual practices. Don't use fear to manipulate people spiritually. Don't feel pressured to spend a ton of money or make a bunch of altars that you don't align with. Don't compare your altar to social media or anything a friend might have. Don't force yourself to follow random internet rules that don't resonate with your beliefs. Don't do anything that doesn't feel in true alignment with who you are. So kind of circling back, let's talk about some common misconceptions and internet rules. This is where spirituality online gets very dramatic. You'll hear things like, you can never move altar items. If your candle goes out, something bad is there. If somebody touches your altar, it's ruined. You can't take a picture of your altar. You can't dismantle an altar. Your altar has to look aesthetic, or you don't need dozens of crystals. And honestly, some of these ideas just come from personal beliefs, and that's okay if those people believe and align with that. Some other things come from spiritual traditions or just the symbolism of things, superstitions, or literally social media fear content. So spirituality should not consistently feel fear-based. That is the point of it. Your altar is allowed to change, and you are allowed to change and evolve. So at the end of the day, your altar should feel very personal and meaningful to you. It does not need to be perfect. It does not need to be expensive. It does not need to look like a Pinterest exploded in your living room. Some of the most powerful altars are incredibly simple. A candle, a photo, a prayer, a crystal, an intention. That's enough. And honestly, I'd love to know in the comments, do you have an altar? And is there something oddly specific that maybe you believe or don't believe about altars, or something that you practice yourself, something that you might add to the do's or the don'ts, or something that you've heard fear-mongering wise? I would love to hear anything about your personal practice in the comments, because this is how we learn. We learn from each other and sharing with each other and seeing what aligns by practicing and trying different things. So go forth, and if it feels good to you, make an altar and do whatever feels right within your soul and your heart when it comes to sharing, talking about it, or putting whatever you want on it.